Good afternoon. I think it's about, we're a little over time starting the session that everybody has been anticipating. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
The truth of the matter is I have had several people tell me that they're really looking forward to this session. I'm saying that I'm not one of those. But that's all right. The title is Catalyzing the Coming AGI Renaissance. Will there be an AGI Renaissance? Well, to me it looks like it. One of the things that makes me think that may very well happen is that all you guys are here. You know, I mean, that's really good evidence as far as I'm concerned. We have a very full agenda this afternoon. We need to discuss, and discuss doesn't mean essentially deciding on real proposals, but getting a consensus of how the people who are here, who are likely to lead this coming Renaissance, feel about these questions. Should we have future AGI meetings and what kind? How about an AGI book series? An open access AGI journal? What about organizing AGI? Do we need a separate organization or something else? We'll discuss each of these, and in addition to that, there are people out there among you, at least two have already told me other things that they'd like to bring to this agenda, and I'd like to make time for that. You know, so I'd like this session to go as efficiently as we can. It's, again, let me emphasize, we don't want to spend this time deciding on details of any of these things, but rather seeing if there's some consensus of what directions that we need to go. If we decide on a direction, then I'm hoping that we'll have people volunteer to lead us and to work toward that direction. And there'll be further discussion of these directions and how to go and who to go and more specifics at tonight's business meeting. The business meeting will be at 8 o'clock. It'll be in room 405 of this building, upstairs. You're all invited, but specifically, we'd like to have at that business meeting the people who want to actively work toward one of these catalytic agents for the new AGI Renaissance. Does that sound okay to everybody? All right. Let's first discuss the AGI meetings. Yep. So that's three items that I know of.
What were the other two?
The other two is, one has to do with international, broadening the scope of the whole enterprise, and another one has to do with making it attractive to business and the whole world. So almost not PI, but more educational kinds of things. So these were the other issues. But let's go on with it. One suggestion was made that we have an AGI-09, and that a good place to have it, the suggestions were made that we could have it in DC, where it would be near funding agencies. We could have it in San Francisco and the Bay Area, where there are high-tech AI companies and futurists. Another suggestion was that there be smaller, more focused workshops. And another possibility is we can do both of these things. So oh, by the way, I've got people sitting down front who can probably answer questions about some of these. And that's the reason we have, it's not really a panel discussion. It's open to everybody. So the question is, what do you think about future AGI meetings? Is there some kind of consensus? What do people think?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, definitely. Which kind or both?
How about voting?
Vote.
Well, the truth is we can vote with these things, but
How do we vote?
let's not do the technology. Can we do the technology easily or not? I don't know whether this thing's been used before.
No, I can't do that. They'd have to all be logged and registered.
Oh, they have to be logged and registered. We'll use mature technology. Do we want to have another one of these conferences a year from now? Yes or no? Yes. Is that what I... Boy, that was a quick agenda item. Look at that. Okay. Just for fun, anybody opposed? Nobody thinks we ought to do it every 2 years? Not a soul. I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't have believed that this group of people could have agreed on anything. Unanimous. All right. That's good. We're making progress. Anyone who would like to be involved in the organization of AGI-09, please come down at the end of this and tell Pei or Ben and show up tonight at the business meeting. Yes? Can I see the hands of all the people who want to work on this thing? Now that's unbelievable too. Look at that. Hey, I'm applauding for you. Well, I think this is super. I've never had a meeting like this go this way. What about smaller, more focused workshops? Is that something we really need to deal with or not? Sam?
Yeah, I think we do, especially because in addition to a general meeting like this, which is really good for broad work,
Yeah.
just like the things we were talking about yesterday in the architecture group, that I'd love to have a focused meeting of like 3 days where we could, the people with architectures could get together and compare and contrast their architectures and, you know, be able to focus on it.
You know, there was a move to do this kind of thing. Ben tried to do it. It just didn't work out. But there was a lot of feeling that it was a good thing to do, and I think it's a good thing to do. What do you think in general?
I'll go ahead and speak against these smaller, more focused workshops because I think that a lot of the, you know, we AGI folks sometimes have a bit of trouble communicating with each other.
Yeah.
And one of the really nice things about this conference was that it was large enough
Yeah.
that I could find fellow, well, Asians to put it bluntly. and I'm not sure that these smaller, more focused workshops would have just end up with a lot of people with their specialized ideas being unable to talk to each other and fall below the urgent behavior threshold.
The particular suggestion here is that we've got a number of cognitive architectures that could be used for this, all of which have many components in common. And the question is, could we agree on some kind of a unified one that could be put out to the whole group and then discussed in large meetings and things?
Well,
is that what you had in mind, Ben?
What I think is that both of these guys are correct, and I think having a smaller, more focused workshop has implicit in it the idea that the people who would go to a more focused workshop will be people who will be interested in that specific focus. So I'd say, just not to be restrictive in any way, but just to list a few people. Myself, Stan, Nick Casamatis, Pei, Sam Adams have cognitive architectures with many similarities and many differences. And for all of us, and then a few others with related ideas, to sit together for 3 days and actually dig into the nitty-gritty of each other's architectures in a way that isn't possible in this kind of context, and isn't even always possible by reading each other's papers, because the papers only go so deep. That would be valuable. On the other hand, one could have a workshop on Bayesian ideas applied to AGI, which might have a separate group of people, maybe with some overlap, which could dig deeply into different people's ideas on that particular area, which could be quite valuable. I guess the point is, this is a great conference. I've had a great time, but you can only go so deep in a gathering like this.
I would suggest tying the workshops to the main conference, actually, like having the day afterward with with workshops for the
Or days before.
days before.
My only problem with that is I feel like a day is not enough for that. You know?
Start stretching out.
Yeah, a day won't do it. It's sort of clear to me that we're of mixed minds about the advantages of the smaller workshops, but the smaller workshop only has to affect the people who are coming. So it doesn't have to be the case that everybody has to agree on it. So that's all right. Yeah, go ahead.
If I can make a comment along those lines, I think it can affect the whole group for one simple reason. We're going to have a problem differentiating between AGI and TripleA. Because if you get into small groups, if you have on Bayesian architectures, for example, my guess is that there's going to be a TripleA Bayesian inference workshop that's going to look an awful lot alike. So we have to differentiate between AGI and what we've been doing for so long with just simple AI.
So let's take that as a contribution to our fourth agenda item. We talk about what to do about organizations because the point's well taken.
I think given the response, it makes sense to proceed fairly aggressively with the AGI-09 idea and the smaller workshops.
Yes.
I guess we can table and discuss offline later.
Exactly.
There could be kind of hierarchy of small groups and then decisions which have been elaborated in small groups and in larger groups, and all the rest will be just
exactly. Let's talk about an AGI book series. Atlantis Press has expressed an interest in this, and Kai is going to speak to us about that for just 2 minutes. There have been also other publishers who have published books in AGI already. So go ahead.
I promised just to need two minutes or so. So at the very beginning, I tell you the title. The title of the book series will be Thinking Machines, and as subtitle, Studies in Computational Cognition. I actually need this.
Just say next.
Over there. And here is some information concerning this book series. So the main idea, it's start this book series with Atlantis Press. Atlantis Press is an open access publisher with headquarters located in Paris, so it just makes the whole thing even more international than this conference here. There's a web page, you can just check this if you want. The worldwide distribution, because it's a startup company, it exists for now 2 years actually. But there's an agreement, a contract with World Scientific, and they guarantee the worldwide distribution and marketing of these books. Some features of the book series is there will be print version, there will be also online version. Both, so the online version will be available on the servers of Atlantis Press. You can also put this on your homepage, and there will be also a hard copy, so to speak, and this is commercially, so to speak, merchandised. There's this Creative Commons copyright agreement, so the author remains his rights. Then further issues concerning this book series. This prospective title is, again, Thinking Machine Studies in Computational Cognition. The book series will try to achieve an average publication rate of 5 to 6 books per year. That means in a midterm perspective, let's say. It is intended to cover both conference proceedings, for example, things like AGI-related conferences, as well as monographs. Currently, the 4 people agreed to function as editors for this book series. 3 are actually here, so it's Pei Wang, Ben Goertzel, and myself, and additionally someone who was also mentioned in the talk during the first day with this beautiful AMBR architecture, Wojciech Kokinov from Sofia. The price for the hard copies, and this is the essential idea here, is that it will be affordable for even individuals, not only for librarians.
Oh, okay, so perhaps I speak just oh, okay.
think you're about done anyway, right?
I'm actually done. There's two last issues. There's an idea for a concrete action. What about planning to letting Atlantis Press publishing the future AI AGI conference proceedings, and then clearly the propaganda thing of this. If you have any ready manuscript, if you have any plan for a book or any concrete ideas, just contact Ben, Pei, me, or Atlantis Press directly concerning AGI-related topics. Thank you very much.
When you said suggested title for the series as Thinking Machines, my immediate reaction was, oh, Danny Hillis, Connection Machine, it's a company, most AI guys who've been around a little time.
Let me stop you. I really don't want us to get involved in a specific proposal. I'm sort of sorry I let this go forward. Otherwise, if we want to get into that, let's get back to it after we've done the others.
That'll be better for the business meeting.
Yeah, if it come to the business meeting, we can do this. So the general question is, what do you think about having an AGI book series? Yes, no?
No, I'm just voting yes.
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 Everybody thinks it's a good idea.
No.
And who thinks it isn't a good idea? Somebody speak.
So it's not a bad idea, but if this group wants to have impact on the rest of the AI field,
Yeah.
you've got to publish, not just in your own books. And you've got to start to show up at TripleA. I mean, maybe you don't want to. And maybe you're just happy to go on your own. The other thing is, in terms of publications for tenure, which is important to faculty members, books don't count for much compared to peer review. And even AAAI conferences carry a lot more weight than a book chapter. A book chapter carries very little weight. A conference that has high rejection rate counts a lot more, and a journal counts even more. So I think you just got to be careful. Sure, go ahead with the book series, but the philosophy for a lot of people has to be, this is not the place I should publish.
Okay.
So why not try to publish a special journal issue? AI magazine.
Well, AI magazine's not a journal.
Okay, I get the impression that there's some dangers of this that's been pointed out, but seems to be an overwhelming view that a book series would be a good idea. Is that the general census still or not?
You voted, so it's obvious.
Let's see hands. Huh?
What are the opportunity costs here? I mean, are there anything we're kind of not doing because of resources we put into this?
Well, let's go on to the next one, because that'll bring us to the question of opportunity costs. Whether we want to, and then we can come back to this one as well. The next one is, should we have a separate AGI journal? The arguments are, at least part of the arguments, is that existing AI and CogSci journals tend to encourage this narrow AI rather than this, and tend to discourage general approaches and to reward minor improvements. Now, should we have a journal devoted to this topic that won't do that, that won't have those drawbacks? What do you think?
Maybe better if we could get people who are into AGI to take on editorships of existing journals.
Editorships of existing journals have to be invited.
Yes.
So it's not a matter of their taking it on. Yeah.
So the idea is obviously good. That's what we're here. We're trying to differentiate AGI from mainstream AI. Question: on the one hand, if we start our own journals, and then there's issues of quality and all that, but if we do it within the existing framework, then it might be sort of disappeared into the cluttering. So I guess the question is, maybe that's the decision we need to make. Is it going to be this dedicated AGI journal, or is it going to be within an existing framework?
We need to have like really well-maintained Wikipedia style, like.
Wait, who's speaking?
He's got the red light.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just like I want to make a comment that like when we have these like when there's like small dedicated meetings, like compare all the different architectures,
Yeah,
then like all that information needs to go on as like a really well-maintained wiki, so that like all the information can just get disseminated, and then that will help like draw interest.
so what you're saying is essentially is there may be other ways than a journal
Yeah.
to do what we need to do. That may be true.
I would far prefer to see an AGI journal than an AGI book series. I mean, if we have limited resources, I think that the journal is far more important and would have a lot more credibility.
I guess my thought about that would be, and see whether you agree, we already have one proposal for a book series that don't take up any of our resources except our efforts. I suspect we could get others if we wanted. I also suspected that we could get a journal, an AGI journal, that would not take up any monetary resources. It would take up effort resources.
And I think that's what we're very short of, though, too. I think that effort concern is very important.
I would say
One of the
that,
most common reasons for starting a journal is simply because you can't get into the main ones.
Yeah.
Or even if you successfully get in, you're buried in among all the other slush in there that's just nitpicking along on some subject.
That's the view that was put forth. Go ahead, Ben. You're
yeah,
on.
I want to respond to both of those points, actually.
Yeah.
In response to Mark Wasser's comment, I think that the main issue is that doing a book series is a much simpler thing. If a publisher wants to publish a book series, then the publisher handles that, and if some individual writes a book and thinks that's the best venue for it, they will submit the book to that publisher and it'll be published. And for Pei and I to serve as editors of a book series, really it's not a terribly major burden. We'll get submissions, and if they look sensible, we'll forward them along, and they'll be reviewed and so forth. So it's just not a big deal. I wouldn't want to say it's no effort. I'm glad there exist publishers willing to take on the bulk of the work, but it's not going to drain significant research time. On the other hand, running a journal is a real lot of work, and it's not to be undertaken lightly. So while I agree a successful AGI journal would be of a huge amount of value, I'm personally not willing to edit an AGI journal as the main editor, because it would be just a big drain of my time. And in response to the point about publishing in an AGI journal, because you can't get published in a mainstream journal, that's not quite the way I think about it, because a lot of us here do publish in mainstream AI journals all the time. But the question to me is more, when you publish a paper in a journal and you know the referees have a certain bias, you write the paper in a certain way, and you leave out many things you would like to say and kind of cast things in a certain light so that it will get published in that journal, which is okay, especially if you're a professor and want to get tenure. I'm not in that position, but I have been in that position. If you have a journal where the bias and the attitude of the editor and the referees is more toward AGI, you can write papers that explicitly focus on the AGI aspects of your work so that the readers don't have to read between the lines. And I think that's really the main value. It's not that we can't publish AGI stuff elsewhere. It's that you wind up often making the work pretend to be something that it isn't, which is why I think an AGI journal would be valuable, even though if someone's a faculty member seeking tenure, yeah, they're going to have to put most of their papers in journals with high ratings, and then put an odd paper in the AGI journal that says more where their passion really lies, but doesn't count as much toward their tenure. So I think it's a value. I think generally it is worthy of some diversion of people's research energy toward that, because it would advance the field. But I also think for an AGI journal to go forward, someone's got to have a real passion for leading that effort. I don't know if anyone's going to emerge. It's not going to be me.
If I could rephrase sort of what I'm hearing, it sounds as if you say that, you know, a book series will have some good impact, and it's reasonably easy to do, so we should do it.
Right.
And an AGI journal will do a lot of good, the only downside being that it's also going to require a lot of effort. So, you know, if we can get the effort devoted, you know, the payoff, you know, per effort is probably about the same, but we need to find a different.
Well, it gets into the details of different ways of doing an AGI journal, which may be more than we want to drill into. But just to say one thing, if you do an AGI journal through an existing publisher, such as perhaps Atlantis or many existing publishers, it requires less effort, but there's downsides. I mean, there can be a high page charge to publish, or it becomes a commercial journal. It's hard to get it to be open access. And if you want to make a journal kind of exactly the way we would like it to be, without the high page charges and with the open access, it requires a lot of effort on the part of members of the community. But there's no real easy solution to making a journal.
Yeah, this began with the question if there was an overlap of resources going to go into a journal.
There really isn't.
Well, yeah, there really is, because I don't see, the overlap of resources is the papers, or the content. I don't see, but I don't, if you think you're going to get 6 monographs, books a year, I'm going to be surprised. And if you're going to package papers, then either they're going in a book or they're going in a journal. I don't really fully understand the difference. Myself, I don't know. But anyway, there's some limited quantity of high quality content that you're going to publish, and it's going to go in one or the other. I don't think it's going to fill all.
There's a real question of whether or not there are enough good papers turned out in AGI-related areas. Can you click your button? Yeah. In AGI-related areas to really justify a journal. I'm not sure. One advantage of a journal is that we can look in one place 4 times a year rather than having to look around. But there may be other ways of doing that kind of thing. Online ways of keeping track of what's been published where, and we'll come to that. Am I right in thinking that there's still this sentiment in favor of doing a book series of some kind, and that we're sort of mixed minds about a journal? And I think that what Ben said was that a journal is not going to go forward unless there are people who passionately want to work on it. Years ago, I was the first managing editor of Topology and its applications. It took a tremendous amount of work, for a new journal. Am I right about our consensus? So we'll put off the issue of journal for the moment. No? Is that okay?
You might ask for a volunteer. Maybe there's a volunteer.
Is anybody really passionate about this? Yeah.
Who will take the ring to Mordor?
I work for a publisher.
What?
I work for a publisher.
Yeah.
We have several journals in a variety of different fields.
Yeah.
It may not be as tough as you think.
Oh, no.
As you say, the problem is content and evaluating content.
Look, Elsevier published the journal that I was involved with. There's still lots of work. Yeah.
My question is that a well-edited book and a well-edited journal should have similar amounts of work. If you have a similar amount of content.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably
Pei was raising his hand and trying to say something.
Go ahead.
Anyway, I just want to say I'm involved. I want to get involved into this journal. I see it's necessary. But on the other hand, we need many people.
Well, would you be interested in leading the effort for an AGI journal?
Probably not. But yeah, I want to spend the time I can afford for that.
All right.
I see that.
We need to go on to our next piece of agenda.
You could use the model somewhat like the annual reviews model in pastoral districts, for instance. One per year, each article sort of summarizes what's happened in that aspect of the field each year. And it's been going on in several fields for decades at this point.
Or we could have a general review journal, like Mathematics Reviews, that comes out regularly and reviews all the things with brief reviews.
That's what it is.
That could be an annual volume in the book series.
It could be an annual volume.
Or a blog. Maybe if there's AGI papers scattered all over the place,
Yeah.
a blog with links to all of them.
A blog might do it, yeah.
May I add just a remark? At the beginning, in in the first minutes, I think we thought about a historical event that potentially could that be here. If we don't believe that if it is, in fact, a historical moment, what happens here, and we don't believe that we can set up a book series with let's say five books in a mid-time perspective, that does not mean 2008. And we don't believe that it is in principle possible to set up a journal, I don't think that this event was so historical, and it cannot. Right?
It looks like people resonated with you, is what you said.
So I would just add another remark. I know a lot of people who are working in fields I would, subjectively at least, at least relate very strongly to things that are discussed here during these 2-3 days. And they are not here.
Yes.
And I think there's a much larger community than what is present here in this room. We have now, I think it was 100 participants, approximately, something like that.
Yeah.
I think the biggest cognitive science conference in the world, the CogSci, every year, annually, attracts around 800. 2007, 2008, something like that. They have, I don't know how many different journals. There are, I don't know how many books published in this realm that counts as cognitive science, and I think there should be room for such an endeavor like AGI for one book series and one journal. I think that's my belief. At least that's my belief.
I agree with you. I feel like it may be, in accordance with those comments, it may be that the best person to be the chief editor of that journal happens not to be in this room either at the time. Because I see there's a lot of us who could be eager participants on the editorial board of such a journal and help out. And we're just too consumed with our own research to take on that kind of managerial organizational task.
Note in terms of people interested but not here, we must have had 40 some odd people on our program committee. Not how many of those are actually here? Half? Something like that.
Less than half.
Less than half. Yeah. And yet most of those are people who thought this conference was a good idea, were willing to work some for it, and they could very well have been here.
I think a journal is a good idea. So, if we can recruit a chief editor for it, we should certainly renew the discussion.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
The question is, when we will do that. Let me reinforce Kai-Uwe's point here. I think we came here because we want AGI to happen. And we want AGI, we want to do whatever it takes to make it happen. Actually, we are here to break away from the field of AI. This is why we have our own conference here.
That takes me into my
forget that. Of course, we are going to go back to the mainstream things that AGI actually is part of the mainstream, or that they want to be part of us. But eventually the question is not, can we find an editor for an online journal or not? Will that be possible? The question is, when are we going to have regular publications in order to make that endeavor worthwhile? And of course we will have an editor because it is worthwhile doing that, and we are here. Many of us are dedicating their lives to this thing, and a journal is just a tiny bit with respect to what we are going to do. So please put a little bit more passion into that, and don't be afraid. I think we will find those people. But
let's go on to the question of organization, which may be our thorniest issue. Do we work within TripleA, which I consider a very fine organization? I've been associated in my long life with a lot of different professional organizations. It's far and away the best, not even close to any of the others I've ever been involved with. On the other hand, AGI is considered as one subspecialty in TripleA, where it's not devoted to us. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't necessarily work within it. We could do a full-fledged organization that's different from TripleA. It needs significant effort and dedicated volunteers, maybe even more so than a journal. Now, some of the same things that have been said about putting forth effort. But it's one thing to preach, look, we're going to devote ourselves to this, put forth the effort. But some of us think, do we want to put forth the effort to an organization or to the research? See, and others will say, well, you've got to do both if you want to make it go. You know, so I'm not coming down on one side of this as the other. Then there's a possibility, the third possibility that was suggested was an AGI network, like a social network, a website kind of thing that AGI researchers would be members of. We could use that for publications, for keeping track of what was published where, for keeping track of meetings, for other things. Do you want to say anything about this, Bruce?
Well, I tried it about 2 years ago. It was a little early, but it might be time now to do so.
I wish someone who had a better sense of social networks and what would be doing. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, this was actually something I put on the wiki, so I'm proud. I would say the reason Bruce Klein is relevant is he actually founded an online social network called the Immortality Institute several years back, getting something like 5,000 members on there, which it's very active with loads of forum posts. And
are they immortal?
we don't know. We're still hoping for it. But then, my line of thinking underlying this suggestion was not fully clearly crystallized, but it just occurred to me that maybe, given modern technology and modern culture, there are ways to sort of gather together and coordinate the efforts of a group of like-minded people without exactly fitting into the classical mold of a professional organization. And if a strategy like that could be found, it could have a sort of political advantage in terms of it's not like, oh, we're breaking away from TripleA and making our own maverick organization. It's rather a kind of separate, kind of parallel effort that in fact may serve many of the same purposes and could maybe in the future turn into a formal organization. So the basic idea would be to create a system that would foster communication, sharing of information among AGI researchers, and the formation of sort of ad hoc committees and groups tasked with doing things like organizing a conference, working toward organizing a journal, and various other tasks confronting the AGI community. What's the difference between this sort of thing and an organization? I think a big difference is that an organization tends to charge dues. And that may be the only really substantial difference. An organization charges dues so that it has secretaries and a certain paid staff that does stuff. Whereas if you have something that's more like a network, you can still have members who have signed up and have a profile. You can have a mechanism online for organizing committees of people, just like you can join groups on Facebook. But you don't pay money, and the downside of that is you don't get a secretary, so the kind of work of maintaining and organizing things has to be done by individuals within the community on a volunteer basis.
You're going to need something for some support for the website, for the webmaster.
We can do that. I could host a website.
Bruce and I could webmaster. Sydney, do you have any idea how we're going to come out of this conference? Is Andy Myers going to have to put up money because we lost money, or are we going to have leftover funds? Do you have any guess?
Ask me on Tuesday. No, I think we might come up a couple of $1,000s in the black, but
all right.
not holding on that.
Yeah, I won't hold you on it. But that's another issue. If we come up a couple of $1,000s on the black or whatever, what would we do with that? Who would have it? Well, currently it would be in the bursar's office at the University of Memphis, but that's not whose money it is. You know, and so we have to have some kind of at least minimal organization.
I would say
but networking could do that.
Hosting a website is not that expensive, and I think Novamente could underwrite hosting a website, and maintaining a website is stuff that Bruce and I and our colleagues are comfortable doing. But I think there's the main thing is that there's going to be all sorts of tasks coming up, and just in grouping people together into committees for different things, and if you want to organize a conference, someone's got to lead that effort and so forth. So definitely doing things in a more Web 2.0 type of way rather than a formal organization involves more initiative on the part of the community. You don't have an organization chairman driving everyone with a whip all the time.
There's an online community called the Brights, people who have a naturalistic worldview rather than a supernaturalistic one. And what they found is that they have two people who are essentially devoting a lot of their time to this, and they do some kind of a fundraising twice a year, but they do find that they do need some money once in a while. And so, in order to do the kinds of things that they do, when we begin to do what Hugo wants to do, which is coming up essentially next, is talk about fundraising. Again, it sometimes takes money to fundraise. So that's an issue.
I would suspect that, although you don't hold me to this, but I would suspect that finding a small amount of private money to help fund an AGI network would be possible. I think that would be possible.
Right? I'm Steve Reed. I'm an active member of the TripleA, although non-office member. So I'd like some comments on the first point, four things. First, a commitment to the AAAI precludes that, it's got some competition in terms of there's NIPS and there's others. And at one time, these were really sort of separated. All the AAAI is trying to make outreach. And all the different competing conferences that have anything to do with artificial intelligence, I think AAAI is the biggest tent. Then, if we do stay with it...
Let me say something about that. AAAI was one of the sponsors of this conference.
Yes.
So I'm certainly not anti-AAAI at all. I'm very much in favor of it, like I said.
But if I was a Bayesian, I might want to go someplace else.
Yeah.
All right. So if we stay within the AAAI, then I think we ought to be active in their program committees. We ought to try to evangelize and bring them to our point of view.
Yeah.
And that would legitimize, and promote our passion in their organization. And then the last thing that has to do is, I think that we could organize ourselves within the AAAI as the robotics people have done. There's a big session that goes on every year at AAA having to do with robotics. And that's an important specialty, and I think if we look to them as a pattern for how we might participate, I think that's a good idea.
Let me implement that. What I'm beginning to hear here, and let me see what people think about this, is that there's a sense of wanting to work as much as possible within AAAI, but also to go with this networking idea. And that these things are not, they don't contradict one another at all. We could very well do both of them, and that may be the way to start. And eventually, if we find we can't work within AAAI, maybe we'll have to have a separate organization. But what's the sense of what I just said, namely working within AAAI and doing a network? That seems to be pretty well a consensus.
Yeah, I have a semi-dissenting point of view, actually. I think doing a network is a good idea, and I'm certainly not opposed to people working within AAAI, but my intuition is that it will be a long and painful process to get a really genuine recognition of AGI as an extremely important thing within TripleAI. And this is partly based on feedback gotten in emails from various individuals involved with TripleAI when we were in the course of organizing this meeting. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but we got a bunch of emails from people saying, well, we already have these symposia, we already have this integrated intelligence track, there's no need for this kind of thing. We already got it all covered as much as it deserves or needs. And I think that is the attitude of a significant percentage of people who play a significant role within AAAI right now, which is not to say that one couldn't prevail in getting AGI a more prominent role, but that it certainly will not be without very considerable political battles, which is not the kind that I have the taste for dealing with.
Ben, we have one of the organizers of this integrated AI track here in the audience. Let's hear what Art has to say about that.
I think it was 1 or 2 years ago. Mine isn't on, but you can hear me, right?
I organized and co-organized, along with Reed Simmons, a track for integrated intelligence systems at TripleAI. And this was very much encouraged by TripleAI to do this sort of thing. And they purposely wanted to include a cognitive scientist along with somebody with more mainstream AI pedigree. And I don't know if it's still continuing, but it's something that is highly encouraged. And I guess given this discussion, I'd be an advocate of both playing the interaction with TripleAI. You have to do that, as well as I think you really do need a journal. But also see how this community grows as well. So it's both. But I think TripleAI would really very much want some of this community to take a major role in keeping that track going.
How about the, what do you call it, the Symposium series of spring and fall? Haven't there been essentially spring and fall symposia devoted essentially to?
There have been. I mean, the nature of the process is such that each time you have to submit a proposal, and then it's debated by a committee of AAAI people. And each year they may decide AGI isn't important, and the theory of auctions or AI applied to rabbit juggling or something is more important.
I think what you're saying is correct, and there's even another problem, that they don't want to do the same topic over and over again.
Well, we had that issue this year in that one person, Alexei Samsonovich, proposed biologically inspired cognitive architecture. Some other group had applied for an integrated intelligence, or I forget what it was, and there was a big debate of, well, is there too much contradiction having these two symposia that both have to do with the very narrow, specialized topic of building a general AI? Which you don't want to have too much focus on that as opposed to all the other subfields.
But where we seem to be is that there may be difficulties in working within AAAI, but we ought to try. Is that the general feeling?
Just a comment and a suggestion. Okay, first of all, there is no singular IBM view. So I'm speaking as an IBMer, but as a member of this community, it makes a big difference when in industry, if you're talking about a field that's a fringe field, and we are still a fringe field, when we have the imprimatur of a larger, more established organization, the fact that this was a AAAI sponsored event made a huge difference in our ability to participate. And I don't think we can afford not to have that in our early years. I think that my suggestion is, we've already had a question. You asked it, and everybody seemed to raise their hand, most of it, with the data sense. That, okay, let's work within the system. We're going to have our own conference. We're going to have our own community outlets and our ways.
It's just kind of ridiculous, weird perhaps, but so I completely agree. It's just
one last thing we need to get off this.
One brief point. When you try to convince AAAI to have some special interest group like this, what are the vehicles to persuade them to? I'm sure they'd cave in if they had any resistance, if 100 people were sending them email like, why don't we have something on, artificial general intelligence?
Okay. Alexei, go ahead.
This episode is AAAI.
I'm not able to hear you.
We cannot hear you.
This episode is...
Can you get him on?
Yes, I posted.
Can whoever's on here, can you turn off and give him? Go ahead.
So let me just say one sentence, okay? This symposium, AAAI Fall Symposium in 2008 on biologically inspired cognitive architectures is now very likely to happen. And actually, with the help of Ben, we received hundreds of letters of support. So there were very few negative letters. I can literally count them by fingers on one hand, negative letters. But hundreds were positive, and there was this very strong support from the entire AAAI community for this kind of thing. And so I believe, especially this year, I heard from Alan Schultz personally that they received fewer applications for symposia than they expected. So I guess they would be very happy if there would be one more on AGI.
All right. Yeah. You wanted a shot at this.
I just had one quick thing to say, which was that there was a TripleA Symposium a couple of years ago on AI ethics, and I knew of a couple of papers that were rejected specifically because they assumed that there would be human-level AI. And in fact, there was a paper in the symposium that was sort of, you know, like a Penrose kind of thing, saying it can never happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was kind of weird.
All right, shall we go on to some, but we seem to have come to some sort of consensus here. People who are interested in actually pushing for this renaissance, please come to the meeting tonight, and we'll talk about specifics, more specifics. Hang on. The next thing we need to talk about is, I think the next most important one is funding. Hugo, you want to bring this up. You want to speak to it?
Well, I'm on the other side of the world. The topic I'd like to speak about, I'll talk about with the business. Well, I'd like to see an AGI center set up in China. I mean, that's basically it. I'll talk about what I really want to talk about this evening, the business needs, but just quickly for everybody here. One of the things I'd really like to see is an AGI center with real impact and government funding and with China's energy in China.
So my question to you is, do you think we can get Manhattan's project kind of support in China for such a thing?
They're hungry. They are hungry.
Look,
it's more likely there than here. I would
it's more likely there than here. that you can be sure. Would you click your button, please? Yeah, it does seem to me, from my own experience, that funding is a major issue. I'd be a lot further along if I had more funding. So the question is there anything we can do group-wise to improve funding prospects? And I don't know. Hang on, Ben, let me get
If you're going to look internationally, where else would it make sense to look? Europe?
Oh, but that's going to be the next issue. Let's bring up international funding at the same time. I'll come back to you.
It does work.
Can somebody turn off so...
Oh, yeah. I'm Vitaly Barkovsky, President Founder of Russian Neural Network Society and head of Neural Optical System Department in Academy of Science of Russian Academy of Science. And we had a session, a brainstorm session on artificial mind 10 days ago.
There's the difference for you.
Yeah, that's the difference. Yeah, 10 days ago. So it's 2 hours of brainstorming, and I have here a Russian record of this 2 hours. And there is an enthusiasm there, and we think probably, you know, there is in nuclear fusion an important issue. There are international efforts. Do not get anybody go ahead of others. So it might be that AGI is something like this issue. So probably we should try to launch really international efforts, including China, Russia, Europe, United States. So let's try to do something in this direction.
All right. Ben, give me a chance just for a minute. Miles, are you here?
I'm here.
Yeah. Can you try to click and see if you can get on? But whoever's on, let him on for a moment and come back.
You must click.
Yeah.
Yeah. Miles has a different agenda item, but all these agenda items of funding the international stuff and what Miles wants to talk about seem to be related. Go ahead.
Thanks, Sam. Just to give you guys a 2-second background.
First, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm doing that. So I'm Miles Bogner, and I was fortunate to come out with my doctorate working under the direction of Stan in art in 1999 is when I finished up. And
For the last several years, I've been doing what I would call traditional program management for Department of Defense companies and large Fortune 100 companies. And each place I go, I try to take the ideas that were presented today in AGI and apply those. And this really gets to the root of funding. I was going to bring it up yesterday in the meeting, but I didn't have time. And I want to give you two scenarios. Here's scenario one. I've got a team this big, top senior level PhD scientists, some in math, some MDs converted to computer scientists, some master's level computer scientists, and several senior software engineers, all from top schools. If I said to them, consider designing your system with a cognitive architecture in mind, I would get a room this big full of blank stares. And I'm not kidding you. Another thing, let's say if we went forward and I took this Department of Defense architecture for cutting-edge tactical systems or large-scale enterprise systems, and I took it to an architectural review. Things such as, in today's world, things such as I have enterprise service bus, I've got a quality of service middleware, I've got even narrow AI stuff, such as a expert system or a search-based optimization technique. Those things will move forward. I can only imagine if I said, I'm going to use some of the techniques such as, we're going to have a global workspace component that broadcasts to a semantic learning system and so forth. The blank stares I would get, if not thrown out of the room in the architectural review. Maybe I'm extending it too far, but this is what I see time and time again when I try to apply this work. My point being is, part of the funding effort, I think, has to start with the people in this room who are academics. And the notion is, when you teach CS 101, people learn about if statements, they learn about logic, they learn about objects. When you even teach high school computer science, that's what they learn about. In high school biology, do you learn about AGI techniques? Do you learn about these entire AGI type architectures, even from just a mention of it? And what I mean by that a little more is that I think the groundswell of this can occur when you have a group of college students graduating. And I commend Simon at Washington Lee, for teaching this. When you have a group of college students that you hire and they come out, and it's the norm to start with an AGI architecture in lieu of trying to learn it and think it complicated in grad school. I think that was my, so this would be my litmus test. My two litmus tests for really bringing this forward would be, when you hire somebody out of college, would be, number one, if you ask them, if they ask you, do you guys do cognitive architectures at your company? And the second litmus test would be, when you're working in the DoD, and the lieutenant colonel comes out of the two-star meeting, and the two-star, and says, the two-star asked me if you guys have a cognitive architecture. And if you don't say yes, you have to justify why not. And that is, I'm going to be quiet, but I think what we're seeing here in terms of funding and in terms of where we want to go is, my imploration as somebody trying to live this in industry, is to start in academia. Re-look at your intro CS, biology, cognitive science programs. Make it where somebody says, even if they say, I hated it, I didn't understand it, somewhere they say to calculus, it's not for me. And that's what I was talking to Stan about.
Thank you, Miles. So the basic idea is that we need education and PR as well. Ben, you've been trying to get in.
Yeah, I think this is a more tactical suggestion about how funding opportunities could potentially be increased within the next 2 or 3 years, which ties back in with the suggestions on AGI-09. And one sort of tactical move that I think might be effective would be, let's say we hold AGI-09 in the DC metro area, and let's say that as well as talks on theory, we set up a room with demonstrations of whatever our various AGI systems actually do. Now, granted, we don't have that many awesome, practical, real-world applications, but many of us have built software systems that actually do things that with us sitting at our computers can actually show off that we have systems doing reasoning, language understanding, solving problems, controlling agents. And let's say that we also make an effort to invite as many people as possible from various US government funding agencies to AGI-09 to watch us demonstrate software and listen to talks. I think this at least can serve to wake up the minds of more and more people in the US government funding domain that this stuff exists and is real. I don't think that it's not a total solution. There's obviously so much to be done in other countries, and there's the whole software industry as well. But I do think that we can make an impact by the simple mechanism of holding conferences, giving software demonstrations, and bringing people with direct hooks into pots of money to come look at them and show them what's going on. And this really hasn't been done to a very significant extent before.
Anybody? Yes.
So I actually want to make Ben's comments on throw my 5 cents into the funding discussion, which is words. Okay, so basically, I agree. I think it's the issue of delivery is key. Many of us do review panels for NSF, DOD, DOE, and whenever it comes up, the fantasies of AGI don't now we live in a time where funding is limited and we have to deliver. And I think there's 2 ways. Either we make some sort of breakthrough and then obviously funding will come, or my view is we're going to have to go overseas to countries that actually are willing to take risks. Because right now, those of you that are in academia and have been doing reviews and things of that nature know what I'm talking about. It's very hard to start these long-term sort of dreams at this point, unfortunately.
Click your button. Anybody else? Yeah, Hugo.
I mean, I can give my own case as a point. In the 90s, Japan gave me $400,000 to do the work I do, and then I went to Europe, they gave me a flat $1 million. America gave me nothing, and China is now giving me $3 million. So it speaks for itself.
$3 million US?
No, but the purchasing power is
It's also been suggested yesterday that we have a law session on funding because there are some people here in attendance who would like to discuss, who are interested in possibly funding things but don't necessarily want to do it in a publicly recorded forum. So probably a good idea if we scheduled a law session where anyone interested in that could show up and talk.
What kind of session?
Birds on a feather, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm from IBM, everything has to be an acronym.
IBM?
Exactly.
I've been moved. I've been moved. All right.
That's the nicer interpretation.
Who else is on? Vlad, yeah, I was hoping you'd come in.
Well, I'm not just listening, but let me mention that in the EU now there is the special unit on cognition, and actually it has rather broad challenges as well as the framework that they are announcing here is broad enough to accommodate some of AGI issues in it. Let me read this bit here. They're talking about systems pertaining to interaction robotics, but also all kinds of autonomic systems and in general statements like they should help improving their performance and more naturally dealing with people, etc. So this is a very broad outline, and there will be calls maybe twice a year, which are slightly more specific but still quite broad. So I think it's possible to try to form a community around some of these calls, and US people can apply for some grants directly to EU EU, I understand, there are different restrictions maybe, but you can actually try to get some of this money yourself, I believe.
My experience with trying to do anything with EU was that I could only do that in collaboration with some.
Yes, you cannot be the leader in the project, but
yes.
you can join the group. And there are some larger scale projects like Humane, for example, with like 30 institutions involved in this, and they're going on now for quite many years. And Humane is an emotions mostly, but there are several others which will be more on social perceptions, etc. I think it would be possible to form.
You know what strikes me is that the networking kind of thing. Can you press your button, please? The networking kind of thing that we talked about might also be useful in getting funding opportunities around to various ones of us.
So a quick riff on what Ben said, which is if you hold a meeting in DC, it might be nice to have a panel discussion by the people from the funding agencies so they can tell us what they want.
I think that would be quite possible to do.
It'd be a good idea, I think. It's an excellent idea.
You can get the funding agencies from China to join them.
There we go.
It's not a joke.
I'm not joking at all.
We're talking about this.
That would be fun.
Let me make a suggestion that people who are actively interested in trying to secure funding of this kind and to work out the tactics of it as well as the strategy, come to the meeting tonight. What I'm hoping we'll do is to break up into little task forces, groups of people who have particular interest and will push in particular directions.
Yeah, okay, so it's, I'm Robert Goodman. It's occurred to me that a lot of things, so of course you grew out so this from the artificial intelligence, but a lot of things mentioned here related obviously to neural architectures, and so it's natural to think that maybe some alliance with the neural network community could be beneficial. And actually I'm on the International Neural Network Society board, and next year I will be general chair of IGCNN in Atlanta, so I think that if there is interest, we certainly could support some joint activity, workshops or whatever.
An AGI workshop at IGCNN or a special track?
Yeah, whatever, right.
Robert, how should, if some of us here wanted to do that kind of thing, how would we go about it?
Yeah, it's probably get in touch with me. We are forming now the program and so on, so it's now actually it's the right time for that.
Okay. Anyone who would like to push for this thing and don't know how to get in touch with Robert, get in touch with me because he's next door.
With PR, I wanted to add one thing. You see, in 2004, I presented just a poster to the Society for Neuroscience General Meeting. Should we be scared of complete understanding of the brain?
I'm sorry.
Should we be scared of the complete understanding of brain mechanisms? And Dennis Glansman didn't let me in because he told me privately, what are you doing? You want to stop funding totally. I mean here only one thing, that everybody understands the problem is extremely important. We are raising it, and it should be just somehow just understood by the society. It is understood by individual, by funded individual, but should we do something to make it clear to more wide audience?
Well, we have one journalist here with us. Celeste, what do you think about all this? I realize you're supposed to take in and not give out, but I'd like you to give out. She's with the New Scientist. Click your button, will you?
Okay. Just at that moment I was in another world, so sorry about that. My mind drifted. I think the thing that I've noticed for me that would that I'm a bit surprised is
let me stop you for a minute, since you didn't hear this. The question is, how do we get the word out in general to funding agencies, to the general public, to undergraduate students, to anybody? How do we get the word out?
Make sexy videos that people will want to post on their blog, you know, like talk to journalists, make your papers sound accessible, like in the title, have words in them that immediately are going to fire someone's imagination and make them think, I want to know more about this. Because it seems that a lot of the work is, the applications are a little bit fuzzy, and it might be a good idea actually to think about, like the computer game application is the obvious one, but apart from that, I haven't heard very many applications. It's all just about can we build a human mind, which is inherently interesting, but you want to big up some further to sell it to people about why they should care about this. I think you need to make that clear. Just think about why should my grandma care, why should my mother care, whether or not you guys get your funding. And if you can think of, so better computer games is one reason, I guess, but it's a little bit narrow. Not everyone cares about computer games. So,
thank you.
So the Singularity Institute has occasionally talked to the public regarding the whole sort of AI ethics issue. It's odd. There's been sort of like this kind of cognitive pressure like coming from others to our organization. Like as soon as we open our mouth and say ethics, there's a sort of, are you going to tell us that science has gone out of control? Oh, ethics, you must be the killjoys in the operation. And we've been, trying pretty hard to resist that and being like, no, machine ethics is a technical problem. You kind of get scientists to work on it. That sort of thing. Like it's a legitimate technical area. And if I can sort of, like, if someone asks you about AI ethics, please don't say, oh, well, of course AIs are going to destroy the world, but I don't really care because I hate humans anyway. It's sort of like the same pressure to like say one or the other, like either science is out of control or I am science and I am out of control. And we're not going down one path, so maybe sort of like in helping our efforts to get the word out to the public without it going down the path of the obvious cliche. I realize that there is a certain moral debate that needs to be held over the propriety of destroying the world, the propriety of destroying the world in various ways. But until we have held that debate, please don't, just come right out and say that you're planning to destroy the world.
We agree that would be bad publicity. Yeah. Yeah. I think one thing that came out of my conversations with Celeste and with just my general experience working with marketing in the business domain is, what government funders want to see, what the media wants to see, what corporate people want to see is, in fact, applications of technology. And, of course, that leads you directly down the path to doing narrow AI rather than AGI, because once you have a particular application in mind, the best way to get 50% of the desired functionality in that application is just to build some very narrow system. So I think there's
and to stay away from the cognitive architecture.
Yeah, you gotta.
I did my IDA system. We took 5 years to do it. Then we took a year to take some of the cognitive stuff out so it would run more efficiently for the name. I'm sorry, Ben.
There's really a careful strategic decision to be made on the part of this community, which is, do we go down the path of kind of putting energy into making whizzy-looking or actually practically usable applications soon so as to get money, or do we actually focus on trying to make thinking machines? And
which we can't do without the money.
Well, I'm not sure. We're doing it. We're just not doing it as fast as we can. But I would submit that the first of those two paths is what the AI community has already done. I mean, the way we diverged as a community from building a thinking machine to narrow AI is precisely this discussion. Well, how do we get money? Well, we got to do what companies and the government wants, therefore we'll build special applications. And there's no need for us to gather here talking about AGI and then replicate the same historical mistake that the AI community made over the last few decades and say, well, to get money, we have to do something narrow and specific to make someone else money very, very quickly. So I think that whatever the correct path to getting funding is, we've got to look for paths to get funding which involve getting funding to actually do AGI work. And it may take a lot of creativity and collective thinking to do it. But if we can't achieve that goal, in my view, we're better off proceeding toward AGI with the current modest amount of funding than getting a bunch of money to do stuff that doesn't really point toward the end goal.
I think a lot of people agree with you.
We cannot hear you.
Hang on a minute, somebody's ahead of you.
I'll get there. Didn't have the 40 million yesterday, don't have it today, but I'll throw in an idea. I look around, the amount of intellectual capital that I see is just incredible. I mean, what if, this is a crazy idea, but we're talking about music and marketing and things of that nature. What if, and it's just an idea, what if you created a podcast, and podcasting is just growing by leaps and bounds. There's only 3,000 podcasts that actually produce stuff on a weekly basis. So, I mean, your marketing avenues are tremendous when you look at all the podcasting networks out there. iTunes is the biggest one, but they have a lot of other ones that people subscribe and listen to it. What if you actually took your publications and put it down into layman's terms? I'm sure you can develop some kind of, computer, AGI, AI, LLM, whatever you want to talk about, university, where people would actually subscribe to these online courses to learn. I mean, people are very intrigued, I think, about things like this. I mean, inventions, it sparks imagination. I mean, you guys, you don't have all the answers, but you have such a wide array of experiences that, this is a marketable thing that you can actually sell. I'll turn it over to you now. Thank you.
Well, let me say a word for them, but I'd like to use the same microphone. I just wanted to say, in the history of AI, there was just one event that really caught the attention of the press and TV all around the world. And even recently, although I thought the DARPA challenge was very important, it has not been that much on TV, at least not in Europe. So, whom can we beat? That's the question. The marketing question, right? I mean, Kasparov is gone. Maybe there is some other area where we could organize a competition to convince people that AI is possible. And my take on this, that's what I said yesterday, will be some word games where it will not be possible to say that this is a fast computer beating us, but that's an intelligent machine that can formulate questions better than humans and get to what they have in mind. And I think this is quite feasible to have world championship in some kind of games like that. But also what Ben is doing is worth advertising, I think, because this will have very broad influence on lots of people. I mean, things in Second Life and things like that. So there will be a few things that we can try to advertise now. Yes?
So now it's my turn. So I just wanted to say very, no, it's not my turn. Reset.
Push the button again.
I guess I'm quickest off the mark. Another idea for funding is I'm trying to play the international rivalry card. Right? So I'm hoping that if China takes it up, then that may spark the American government to say, oh my God, we're going to do the same.
Even the military.
Maybe.
Oh, now it's my turn. Okay, I just wanted to say that I'm sympathetic to what Eliezer had to say about alarming the public. We don't want to alarm the public, but I think that, we just sort of present the ethical issue to them as something that is solvable, that the scientists, the scientific and technical expertise exists to solve it, and downplay, as he says, the alarmist sort of thing, but on the other hand, present to them what the problems and issues are so that they can understand it, educate the public, and be confident about the solution.
That's not exactly what I was trying to say. There is issues here that are worth worrying about. We're not trying to downplay that.
Right.
We're asking people not to say, oh yeah, we're going to destroy the world.
But to take an adult point of view, like yes, we want the world to be preserved for our children, all this sort of thing. but that to be confident about it, that yes, we can figure it out.
You can't actually, because there is no law before that.
I believe this is a bit of a digression.
Let's see if we can get Alexi in. We're about to run out of time.
Just wanted to make a quick comment that we should probably try to sell this to our fellow geeks and nerds first. You know, they're probably more receptive to these things, and we can talk about the motivation for AI. It's kind of the biggest lever that we have to affect change in the world, and also bring up the ethical concerns with our fellow geeks and nerds.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the gentlemen out there touched this point, but I think one thing that is relevant is that I don't think I've heard any easy to understand, coherent explanation of sort of how an AGI works. Ben's writings are probably the closest thing I've seen to it, but you know, I can understand that, and I'm sure other people here can understand that because we spent so much time reading and thinking about the problem. Had we not done that, his works would be very opaque. But to make them not be opaque, they'd have to be much longer. And you know, I'm not blaming you at all, man. Nobody else has done anything better. But I think it really would be nice if we had somebody sort of making something that was a little easier to understand. Because I find most of the papers I read, I kind of read them and I kind of go, okay, what is this? And then all of a sudden say, oh, this maps into this, and this maps into that, and this works this way. And it's only after doing that that I begin to understand why the paper is really worth reading, if you know what I mean. So what I'm saying is, I think that the ultimate route to get money is things more like if there's an international competition, but as Ben's saying, actually making applications that work. But I think it would be good if there were an easier to understand application for the people who haven't been spending hundreds of hours reading materials in this field.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, getting some gifted writer to write a book similar to James Glick's book, Chaos, back in the 80s, would certainly be a good thing for AGI. I'm not talented in that type of writing, but I agree. It's possible for a popular book to kind of crystallize a field in a way that at least every congressman feels they have to buy the book, even if they don't go beyond reading the back cover. But the main point I want to make...
I think it would have to address some of the singularity issues.
The main point I want to make, though, I think that one avenue toward kind of broadcasting this to the public in a way that people can understand would be to marshal more efforts around the kind of AI and virtual worlds and gaming approach. So if a virtual world kind of API was set up to make it easy for various people to hook their proto-AGI systems up to control the same agents, kind of doing cool stuff in the world that people could interact in. If you see the amount of media that Second Life has gotten in the last year for not tremendously good reasons, these are funky pictures, people can go in and play with them, and it does enliven the public attention more so than most technical topics. And I think that's one path toward awakening attention as we go on the incremental path to AGI.
We only have time for perhaps two more comments. You have a brief one back there?
Yeah, my comment was just, I heard a good idea about half an hour ago from Ben regarding, seeing a kiosk in Washington, D.C. that says, okay, founders can walk by and say, hey, AGI looks like but I think it's half a good idea. The half being the implicit assumption that one of those guys will come by and say, wow, this looks like $1 million application. I'm going to give you $1 million to finish it for me. And my experience in software development is that generally people aren't that smart, and you have to tell them what makes a good application. And I think also implicit in this is that if we believe that someone will walk by the kiosk and give us $1 million to create it, we must think it is a $1 million application. Again, all the smart people in this room ought to be able to come up with the applications, ideas, visions, so we can tell these people how we can make the money and then get the funding.
Yeah, let's keep in mind that $1 million won't even start, as far as I'm concerned. Click your button, would you please? Aha! He finally got in.
So here's what I wanted to say. I think that bigger than the third one, and so on. And this is what we should be concerned with, designing this ladder and forward.
You got it. Fine.
Yeah,
Last one.
I'm having this huge,
All right, one more.
I'm having this huge disconnect with reality or with, you know, the public consciousness. I mean, we're asking how do we get the word out? And let's see now, primetime television, Fox Network, 9 o'clock Mondays. What do you have? Terminator Chronicles. You know, you've got a large percentage of your audience watching science fiction. You know, why don't we start, you know, piggybacking on things of that sort? You know, we have a lot of messages for which we already have audiences. You know, we have audiences who are already tuned into our fears that I hear other people say, don't tell the rest of the world about this fear. It's like, I'm sorry. Well, yeah.
No, whoa, let's don't get back in here.
You know, it's, a lot of this is in the public consciousness. Let's piggyback on what's already out there.
How?
Don't start a new effort.
How? How would you piggyback?
Recruit Arnold Schwarzenegger as our
But last one, and we'll take this up again, this whole topic, if you like, at the business meeting tonight at 8:05.
Yeah, I think that this is a good idea, just to have a collective monography intended for general public, and just maybe just appeal for all of them, of us. Try to write a chapter, and then we will decide if it is sellable or not for general public. So
you're going to write it.
Appeal to all of us.
You're going to write it.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I do. Yeah. If anybody else, it would be great.
All right. One last comment. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the more I think about it, I think Ben said something that's really good, because I've read some science books by science writers who take a subject and make it like 100 times more interesting than it would
Maybe we need to look for such a...
there was a book about fuzzy logic that was that way.
Yeah.
There was a guy, his name's like something like Jonathan Shell or something, who's written a bunch of physics books that are just amazing.
I got it. Celeste, are you going to write it? Yes, sir. I can't hear you. What? What?
You have to pay funding first.
You need funding too.
All right. Thank you for coming and participating in such. And we have dinner. We have a banquet at 6, that kind of thing, and a business meeting at 8. See you then.
Party day in the hotel.